Hello guys, my name is Muhammad Taufik Muhammad. I am from the School of Social Sciences, presenting here in the 17th International Conference on Interdisciplinary Social Sciences. So my study is titled To Vaccinate or Not to Vaccinate, the People's Preparedness and Readiness for COVID-19 Vaccination as a Health Behavior Demand Post-Pandemic. So a little bit background of my study. So COVID-19 is now still one of the most devastating pandemics humans have ever experienced. And COVID-19 has affected almost every aspects of human life, the businesses, the politics, our social life, and so on. So because of this, because of such devastating effects of COVID-19 as the pandemic, one of the most important mitigation measures that we should do as a society is the community-wide strategies like wearing a mask, social distancing, and getting vaccinated. So in the beginning, this is not a problem because in the beginning, people were very concerned about COVID-19 because of the hype and sensationalization of the disease. So at that time, people were very compliant, and there were less controversies around the strategies that the governments have asked us to do, including Malaysia. However, right now, like this is, I should say, more than 2 years after the pandemics, we are achieving what the researchers call as the new normal, where people are, they are already used to the pandemic. So they become less wary, they become less concerned, and they become less scared of COVID-19. And while many countries have declared that COVID-19 now is an endemic, including Malaysia, but a lot of reports on COVID-19 are still as concerning. Like, for example, as you can see, the data that I got from our World in Data, you can see that there is a little bit of an uptick in COVID-19 cases. And then, because my study is situated in Malaysia, so it is relevant for me to talk about the situation in Malaysia. And as you can see, even though we used to have a dramatic increase of cases in the past few months, but still right now our cases are stuck in the thousand range. Like, we somehow cannot reduce it to the range of when Malaysia was first, facing this pandemic in early 2020, when the cases were even below 100. It is difficult, perhaps due to the new normal, where people are no longer, as concerned as they were before in the beginning of the pandemic. This may be because of certain movements, specifically the anti-vaccine movement that feeds myth and also fake news about the vaccine to the public. And then the public, because of the socio-political situation in Malaysia, given the political, the demographics, such as the religious and also the cultural backgrounds of the Malaysian people, they somehow become more vulnerable to this fake news. And it is also a bit concerning that our Minister of Health says that the new COVID-19 wave would be earlier than expected. So, this has also become a point of concern for the Malaysian government and also the Malaysian public. All of this is showing that COVID-19 is still a big concern in Malaysia and also around the world. So all the points that I was presenting just now, all of this is pointing towards, one thing that I would like to discuss, which is health belief. So health belief is captured by a model called health belief model that says that people's belief towards certain health behavior and certain diseases would influence them to adopt a certain health behavior. And as I said earlier in this presentation, that people have become they have been used to this pandemic. So this is what we call as the new normal. Perhaps because of this, the new normal has given people with a sense of security and safety. So people no longer wanted to take the mitigation measure like wearing a mask, like social distancing and also getting the vaccination, the COVID-19 vaccination like they did before. So a health belief model has originally has four elements. The first one is perceived susceptibility. The second one is perceived severity. The third one is perceived benefits. And the fourth one is perceived barrier. And then later on, some studies have added two more elements, which are cues to action and self-efficacy. So let me explain a little bit about each element. The first one is perceived susceptibility, is people's belief and perception towards their likelihood or susceptibility to contract the disease. And then perceived severity is people's belief that even if they contract the disease, would the disease be severe or not? Would their experience be severe while facing the disease? So perceived susceptibility and perceived severity are combined into perceived threat, the threat of the disease. And the third one is perceived benefit, is people's perception and belief towards the benefits of the certain health behavior. And perceived barrier is their perception of challenges or barriers to adopt these health behaviors. And then cues to action is what triggers them to finally adopt these health behaviors. And self-efficacy is their belief about their own capacity, their own ability to undertake the health behavior. So, health belief model is not totally new in the literature of COVID-19. There are some studies already have they have already examined how health belief actually affect the willingness of the people to undertake the COVID-19 vaccine. So, the studies that I've shown in the screen over there, they have shown that health belief do affect the willingness of the people to undertake the COVID-19 vaccine. However, I believe that there are two gaps that have not been answered by past literature. And the first one is whether people's decision to undertake the COVID-19 vaccination is affected by their sense of moral responsibility, and also whether the consideration, whether the socio-political situation in Malaysia is also affecting their decisions. So because of the gaps, these are the research questions that my study was aiming to answer. The first one is, how do health beliefs held by individuals and the sense of moral responsibility predict their status of COVID-19 vaccination? And second, why did the individuals decide to undertake or not undertake the COVID-19 vaccination? So the second research question is to specifically explore the socio-political situation that might affect their decision. My study was a cross-sectional study that employs a mixed design, which is specifically a capital letter quantitative and small letter qualitative design. So what I mean by that was that the quantitative design would be the dominant design in my study, and the qualitative design will only be the supplementary design. And then for the sampling procedure, so I should acknowledge that the socio-political situation in Malaysia is very complicated surrounding the process of vaccination or process of vaccinating the public. So a lot of the decision is involving the religious background of the people and so on. So all of these are affecting the decision of the people to undertake the vaccine. So because of that, because of the complication, we adopted several also strategies in order to recruit our respondents. So the first one is the use of snowballing technique. So snowballing technique is the technique where we obtain the first respondent with a certain vaccination status, and then we ask the person to refer us to other respondents with a similar background. This is an important strategy for us because especially for vaccination status, where some people they might decide not to be vaccinated. This is a very difficult decision because in Malaysia, if you decide not to be vaccinated, you might face certain complication in your daily life. Like you cannot be totally mobile, you cannot move around and so on. So because of this, people were very afraid, or people were careful not to reveal about themselves too much. So because of this, it is quite difficult for us to get such a respondent. So we depend on snowballing technique. And secondly, we also use self-selecting technique where we advertise our study in certain platforms, and then we let people come to us in order to be our respondents. So after our sampling procedure, at the end of the data collection process, we finally recruited 443 Malaysians above 18 years old. So these are the variables which involve six predictors and one outcome. So the predictors were the elements in health belief model, and also the outcome is the status of COVID-19 vaccination, which we divided into a positive and negative status. So a positive status is their willingness to be vaccinated, and they actually wanted to be vaccinated. And a negative status is their unwillingness to be vaccinated, and also if they were forced to be vaccinated. It's like they did not want to be vaccinated, but they were forced to be vaccinated because of certain reasons. So these are the outcomes. And also for our qualitative element, we added an open-ended item at the end of three variables, which are perceived benefit, perceived barrier, and also cues to action. So other than asking the respondents to fill in the close-ended item, we also ask them specifically in their personal experience whether they thought that they had any benefit of being vaccinated, or if they had any barrier, or what triggered them specifically to undertake or to undertake in the future. And the qualitative part of our study is analyzed using a thematic analysis. So this is the first part of our findings. So the quantitative part, as you can see, this is the descriptions of the sample. As I mentioned before, our final count of respondents were 443, by which 173 was was male respondent. And then regarding the ethnicity, the Malay respondents comprised the majority of the sample, which was 338. And then regarding the educational status, our respondents were mainly those with a bachelor degree. And then the mean age of our respondent was 28.8 years old. And then this is the description of the variables. As you can read from the slide there, the mean and also the standard deviation of each component of health belief model, and also the sense of moral responsibility. However, I would like to highlight there regarding the status of COVID-19 vaccination, where there were 339 respondents who had a positive status, and the rest were respondents with a negative status. So as you can see, mainly our respondents had a positive status. So let me show you the logistic regression analysis, where we would like to see if health belief model and moral responsibility would predict the status of vaccination of each respondent. So as you can see from the table, which summarizes the data of the logistic regression, so the analysis demonstrated that demographic backgrounds, which were sex, the age, and also the educational background of the respondent, and health belief model, they predict the status of vaccination of the respondents. However, the moral responsibility was not statistically significant. And the results of the logistic regression were statistically significant. However, I would like to highlight for now that, as you can see, which is confusing to us, in the beginning, where the perceived threat has a negative relationship with the vaccination status. What it means in face value is that the higher you the higher you have the perceived threat towards COVID-19, the more likely that you are to be categorized as a negative, as a respondent with a negative status, which is quite confusing to us. However, we will explain why this finding is like this later. But first, I will talk about the thematic analysis of the open-ended items. So as you can see from the screen over there, so we ask the respondents to specify the barriers, the benefits, and also the triggers in regard to their COVID-19 vaccination. So there are some themes that we found from the responses of our respondents, but I would like to highlight a few that would be important to highlight why there was a confusing data from our quantitative part just now. So the first one here is conspiracy. So conspiracy, a lot of some of our respondents and all were reported by those with a negative status. They reported about their belief in certain incorrect belief about the COVID-19 or the COVID-19 vaccine. So because of this, they hesitate to undertake the COVID-19 vaccination because of the belief in the conspiracy. Like for example, COVID-19 vaccine is used by the government to track the people, something like that. So, some of the respondents, they believe in this. And then regarding the specific benefits and also the specific triggers, so for the specific benefits, you can see that the benefits reported by the respondents can be categorized into health-related benefits and we could say freedom-related benefits. So the health-related benefits, as you can see, are categorized into health benefits and protection. However, I would like to highlight the benefits reported by the respondents, specifically the continuing life and also the freedom as benefits. So a lot of those with a negative status of COVID-19 vaccination, they reported that the benefit that they would get after being vaccinated with a COVID-19 vaccine is that they could continue with their life and that they would achieve freedom in their life. So while some respondents with a positive COVID-19 vaccine also reported continuing life and also freedom, the responses of the benefits and also the triggers can be seen in tandem. Like those with a negative status of COVID-19 vaccination would say continuing life with life continuity. So what I mean by that is that, a lot of them, they would say that what triggers them to undertake the COVID-19 vaccination is when the government announces that you would be free and you would be able to go to the cinema, you would be able to see your family. So continuing life whenever you get vaccinated by the COVID-19 vaccine. So because of this, the respondents with a negative COVID-19 vaccination status, they would be triggered by this kind of announcement. However, even though the respondents with a positive COVID-19 vaccination status, they also reported continuing life as the benefit, but a lot of them, they also said about self-awareness, where a lot of them, when they say that when they were asked about what triggered them to be vaccinated, they would say, "Oh, because I'm aware and I'm clear about the role of the vaccination. I know that the vaccination is important for me to be." To be protected against COVID-19, help my government and also help my people from being from contracting the disease. So because of this, we realize that those with a positive COVID-19 vaccination, they have a higher level of self-awareness. So now after examining in depth the qualitative data, we finally understand why our quantitative data is quite confusing. So I would like to repeat again that at face value, components of health belief model seem to predict the COVID-19 vaccination. So, except for the confusing part where there is an inverse relationship between perceived threat and also the status of COVID-19 vaccination among the responders. And we also found out that moral responsibility has a insignificant role in predicting the COVID-19 vaccination. We are not claiming that our respondents are immoral. We are just saying that moral responsibility does not really play an important role in their decision. So now I would like to focus on why there is an inverse relationship between perceived threat and also the status of the respondents. So because of the qualitative data, we argue that this is because the socio-political situation in Malaysia contributes to the nuances in the decision of the respondents whether they want to undertake the vaccination or not. So because of the qualitative data, we argue that the fear of vaccine does not equate fear of COVID-19. So what we are saying that is that even if the people fear COVID-19, it does not automatically lead them to want to be vaccinated against COVID-19, because fear of COVID-19 and fear of vaccine is, they are separate thing. They do not have a relationship, at least according to our qualitative data. So it means that even if people I just would like to repeat, even if people fear COVID-19, it does not mean that they do not fear, or if they fear the vaccine. So they are totally separate things. Because of this, our study has several implications. The first one is that our study says that educating about the vaccine should not be the same with educating about the COVID-19, because these two seem to have disparate properties in our studies. However, our study says that they should be done separately. So we need to clearly communicate to the public about COVID-19, and also communicate to the public about the vaccine. In a very clear manner. However, our study has certain limitations, and then of course, some of the conclusion came from the qualitative data. We could not make a hard conclusion. Why? The first one is because we did not quantify the thoughts on freedom and continuing life, and see whether they interact with health belief model or not. So if we quantify the thoughts, and then we analyze quantitatively with the health belief model, then we could see whether they really play a role or not. And then second one is we did not conduct a relational content analysis to see the relationship between the themes. So if you guys are familiar with content analysis, there is a category of content analysis called as relational content analysis, where we could see the relationship between the themes that we found in our data. So this would be able to tell you further about whether the themes has a relationship or not. All right, so I hope that our study give you some insight about COVID-19 and also the vaccination process from a social scientific perspective. If you have any question, or if you would like to reach out to me about the study at any time in the future, please reach out to me at the email as stated in the screen over there. So I would like to also give an acknowledgement to several parties. The first one is Pfizer Malaysia Sdn Bhd for the funding, and the second one is University Science Malaysia for the support. I also would like to acknowledge the respondents for their time, and also the research team for their effort. So, yeah, having said that, I say thank you, and I hope to see you soon. Bye bye.